Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to session 2 of Product University. For those of you who don't know, which I don't know why you wouldn't know if you didn't come to session 1, but this is Angie. I'm the marketing manager and product specialist here at RIMAN. Happy Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day used to be something I was not a fan of when I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I just really appreciate it as a day to show a little extra love to my friends, to my family, even to my coworkers. I messaged the whole marketing team that I love them today. So I hope you can give and receive a little bit of that warmth today. And even if I haven't personally met you or connected with you, just know that I care about each and every one of you, not only as just members of the RIMAN family, but as individuals as well. So happy Valentine's Day. But today we have a fantastic Product University in store. And without further ado, I'm going to get started and share my screen. All right, so today we are talking about giant BYoungPool and Jeju lava energy water. So these are our two hero ingredients. What better thing to talk about on the day of love than ingredients that love your skin? But today we are going to be going into kind of the history, the science, all that good stuff. Oops, am I not sharing my screen? Hold on, let me get into that. There we go. All right, now I'm just going to share my screen. But now we're going to get into all that good stuff about the science behind each of these things and all of the different technologies that are going into this RIMAN innovation with these ingredients. So let's first start with giant BYoungPool. So giant BYoungPool is native to Asia, and it appears in a lot of historical texts as a regenerating herb, and it has a beautiful storyline to it. So not only in its efficacy for the skin, but even for the entire body itself. So as you all may know, it's probably most commonly well known as either Centella asiatica or tiger grass. And that tiger grass name comes from how essentially it was observed that tigers, after they would battle and would become wounded, they'd roll in this giant BYoungPool to essentially heal their wounds. So that's where the tiger grass name came from. But it's also associated with longevity in Sri Lanka, and in Ayurvedic medicine, it was actually revered as a wound healing and mind clearing active. So of course, we're not saying if you drink a bottle of your dermatology booster, you're suddenly just going to have your mind clear. Don't do that. But it's just a beautiful history that stands behind this ingredient that we just further extrapolated on with our innovation. And to understand a little bit more about RIMAN's connection to this specific BYoungPool, we have to look at our Ask-based smart farm. So located at Jeju Island, if y'all remember, Jeju Island is the island off the coast of South Korea that has not only just a beautiful history, but also beautiful culture and resources and a tight connection with RIMAN. On that Jeju Island, there is the Jeju Lava Water Research Center. So we actually located our smart farm within this center. So last week we talked about Ask-based. This is what I'm talking about. Ask-based established this smart farm for our BYoungPool growth in Jeju Island. So really, this all came about because we were trying to work around cultivation's conditions in Korea. So Korea didn't hold particularly favorable cultivation conditions for the BYoungPool outdoors, so we brought it inside. And in doing so, we were able to not only monitor temperature, but humidity, the different soils that the plants could grow in, and even the harvest time. And all of this really allowed us to create our patented giant BYoungPool. But in reality, when you look at the smart farm, it's not as simple just, a bunch of different plants and boxes of plants. There is so much that goes into the consistency and growth of these plants. So we are continuing to always make sure the various things I've listed here that we monitor are kept at stable conditions, always the same temperature, same humidity, etc. And so this is really important because it allows us for consistent plant growth. And if you'll also remember in our discussion about Ask-based last week, we need that consistency because we are producing this raw material for our formulas. So you can't have variation in the different leaf sizes or the different components that are promised with each leaf. So in essentially monitoring all these and creating our cultivation conditions for the BYoungPool, we actually discovered a strain of BYoungPool, which then we all know, of course, as giant BYoungPool. So once we discovered this strain working around cultivation conditions, we then quickly patented it, and we now have an exclusive patent on it for 20 years. And this patent was not easy to get. This took a lot of care. So essentially, we recruited a recognized cultivation institution, and also the government was involved in Korea to essentially test these seeds and make sure that they grew consistently over a 3-year period. So over 3 years, we were being essentially able to monitor the growth of these plants to make sure that every time a certain batch grew, they were 3 to 4 times larger than traditional BYoungPool. And so that's where the giant BYoungPool came from. And eventually the patent, just really making sure that there's consistent growth and consistent largeness in comparison to traditional BYoungPool for us to be able to hold this patent. All right, so BYoungPool itself, it is well known in the K-beauty sphere. I would say it's most commonly known as Centella asiatica. You might see that name specifically on a couple of different products, but as I've also mentioned, it's also known as tiger grass and Asiatic pennywort, and of course as BYoungPool. So what's so beautiful about this ingredient is that it is safe for sensitive skin. And whether or not you identify as someone with sensitive skin, there are periods in anyone's life when your skin can become sensitized. So if you've either had a moment in which your barrier was disrupted, or perhaps even you just got a sunburn, all of that moments actually can provide for more sensitive skin. So acknowledging that a baseline of sensitive skin can be applied to virtually anyone, the fact that this plant applies is fantastic and only promotes or promises further benefits for the other skin types, for oily, for dry, for combination as well. So with this safety for sensitive skin, we have found not only that it's able to soothe and calm irritated skin, but also that it provides intense hydration and it's able to improve the skin barrier. And so we are able to understand this, of course, about traditional BYoungPool. So there are very many research studies out on Centella asiatica, which I welcome you to look into a bit more. But of course, we had to do something different here at RIMAN. And because we have that different strain, that giant BYoungPool, we had to see what's different about that. So right off the bat, just in our utilization of giant BYoungPool, we actually are using it. Someone's not muted. Anyways, so we are using it only in its fresh form, never dried. So if you can see in this image here, we have Madagascar and Indonesian Centella asiatica, both of which are commonly areas in which it's grown. And then of course, our giant BYoungPool in that beaker on the far right. And so oftentimes companies will utilize this dried BYoungPool because it lowers the cost of shipping the raw material. However, when you dry a product, you immediately remove a lot of the beneficial components of that product. For example, any water-soluble vitamins are going to go out with the water that was initially in that leaf. You can even see just in the picture alone that once you dry it, you start getting a browning of the leaves versus our giant BYoungPool, and our ability to use this fresh BYoungPool keeps its greenness, and in the same result also keeps some of those additional benefits within the whole tacked leaves. All right, so if you can see on the left here, here's a fantastic comparison between standard BYoungPool and giant BYoungPool, just really showing the differences in leaf size. So that giant BYoungPool is going to be 3 to 4 times larger than traditional BYoungPool. And with our exclusive utilization of this giant BYoungPool, we have already found tested benefits for the fact that it actually has a higher polyphenol content. So we'll go a little bit detail on the next slide about what polyphenols are. But the fact that they are in higher abundance because of the greater area of these leaves leads to essentially greater antioxidant activity. And then we also have ongoing tests, which I'll touch on, that show that there's a significant anti-wrinkle effect and a potential reduction in hyperpigmentation, all because of this giant BYoungPool leaf. So when we're looking at the leaves and we're appreciating them, it's, you know, it might be a little bit too scientific, but y'all know me, I love to go into the science. So there are actually a couple of different components within BYoungPool that are really doing that primary performance for our skin and also for our bodies. And so it's going to be the 4 molecules listed below: madecassoside, madacassic acid, asiatic acid, and asiaticoside. So it's not necessarily important for you to know these in that detail, but just to kind of give you an example of, you know, when we are extracting the BYoungPool leaves, these are the things we're getting from it. You know, where it gives body, or it gives understanding a little bit more to the different things that are in your BYoungPool leaf extract. But for the various different extracts we get from a giant BYoungPool, not only do we have things that reduce free radicals and reduce inflammation, such as the madecassoside, but we also have things that are postulated to stimulate collagen production, which is really substantial. And again, I invite you to look at the various research studies on these specific antioxidant extracts. Asiaticoside also offsets the triggers of sun damage. And of course, along with these four different main components of ByoungPool, we have those polyphenols. So those are potent antioxidants that perform very well to reduce oxidative damage in our skin. And so I won't go too much into detail on that, but we can actually learn a little bit more about it next week. But essentially, when your skin is exposed to either UV rays, pollution, or various other external damages, it creates oxidative species within your skin. And these little molecules are missing electrons, and they want to steal electrons from other molecules. And in doing so, they begin to harm and eventually can even kill off your cells. So when you're talking about antioxidants, it's essentially blocking the activity of these oxidative species. So I probably went too depth on that one, but that's kind of what's going on in there. And what's also really interesting about these different extracts is the fact that a lot of studies study them in combination with each other. So you might see a product that specifically calls out madecassic acid or madecassoside. It's, a madecassoside serum, whatnot. But it's very interesting that there's actually a synergistic effect with all of these different components within the ByoungPool that are performing the antioxidant care, the anti-wrinkle reduction, etc. So in many of these, you'll actually see the same benefits listed for multiple of the extracts because they all do very similar things for our skin, but support each other for the utmost benefit and efficacy once applied to the skin. So of course, as I mentioned, there is so much research already on just traditional ByoungPool on the internet. I always like to go to Google Scholar, just to read some of them. But there's of course also research specifically for our giant ByoungPool, and that's of course what we care about because that is what is making RIMAN different. So the picture of the study above is showing essentially the different growth characteristics between traditional Centella asiatica and of course our giant ByoungPool. So just really understanding those differences in regards to not only the leaf sizes being different, but also of course the different load of various extracts and chemical compounds. And then secondly, we have ongoing studies with various universities in Seoul just to continue extrapolating on the benefits that giant ByoungPool offers for our skin. So with Seoul National University, that is where we're getting the potential for an anti-wrinkle performance, as well as the reduction in hyperpigmentation. And then with Jeonbuk, I'm sorry if I butchered that, with Jeonbuk National University, we are doing our further studies on separate extracts of the ByoungPool. So finding out beyond, the madecassic acid and the madecassoside, what other little components are benefiting our skin as well. And then lastly, with Suwon Science College, we are actually identifying a specific fermented strain from the giant ByoungPool leaves, which is fantastic for skin. So I don't know if y'all have heard about the microbiome or your skin microbiome and maintaining the good and bad bacteria that exist on your skin. But with this study and with the potential lactobacillus ferment that could come with giant ByoungPool, this offers additional benefits for specifically the skin microbiome. So as always, we never stop with the innovation, especially with our hero ingredient. So only more studies are to come and really just continuing that majesty of this giant ByoungPool leaf. But of course, to accompany giant ByoungPool, we then have our Jeju lava energy water also from Jeju Island. So to understand the prowess of the Jeju lava energy water, it's really important to firstly understand that traditional formulations can contain up to 80% distilled water. And so, the larger side, the 80%, that's going to be your body washes and your shampoos that you can get at the drugstore. That large content of water is going to allow them to fill that bottle, to have a big bottle, but for it to be cost effective to produce. And so there's absolutely no harm in that. There are still good ingredients in those products, but of course the water itself is a wasted opportunity to do something else for your skin or your hair or your body. So that's when Jeju lava energy water comes in. So on Jeju Island, roughly 400,000 years ago, a volcano began to form, and this is known as Halasan. And beneath Halasan, of course, beneath any volcano is going to be volcanic bedrock. So the surrounding seawater began to filter through this volcanic bedrock and it was becoming purified of any toxins or heavy metals existing in the water, and instead was actually becoming instilled with various essential minerals. So this location is one of 4 different locations in which there's this volcanic seawater, but it is the most, I would say, accessible and most promising for human use. So we also have Spain, Japan, and Hawaii having similar locations with volcanic bedrock and seawater filtering through it. but various reasons for each of these locations inhibit the ultimate utilization of this seawater. For one of them, I believe it's just far too deep. Another one, it's too sandy. And the third one, it's not pure enough. So Jeju is the perfect place and really the only place to get this kind of water, this kind of quality water. So probably the greatest thing about Jeju lava energy water that sets it apart from distilled water is its mineral composition. So it has essentially various essential minerals that are actually known to somehow benefit the skin. So the greatest thing about this, we have things like silicone, selenium, and zinc, all of which, already have tested benefits on their own for the skin. So just kind of considering that for use in the water itself. But the other aspect about the Jeju lava energy waters that is fantastic is that it has very little seasonal fluctuations. So when we talked about that giant BYoungPool, we need to make sure that those growth that stayed consistent, which it did. Same goes for the Jeju lava energy water. We have to make sure that this resource stays consistent in its mineral composition and in its purity year round so that we can safely use it in our products. So as you can see in the chart at the bottom left here, the pink is essentially denoting the lava seawater in comparison to surface water and bottom water, or deep sea water. And so as you can see, both in salt, in pH, and in temperature, nearly year round, it stays baseline, it stays consistent, which is just beautiful for the ability to utilize it in our products and promise consistency in kind. So with Jeju lava energy water and with this mineral composition, there are various research studies done outside of RIMAN, but just kind of further extrapolate the potential benefits of Jeju lava energy water for the skin and ultimately the body. So probably one of those prominent things I would point out is this test in the middle here, which is its skin hydration effect. So Jeju lava seawater actually has the potential benefit of hydrating the skin, which is amazing in comparison to traditional distilled water, which has no benefit to the skin. Further studies also suggest that it actually has the ability to essentially inhibit melanogenesis, which essentially means it can inhibit the production of hyperpigmentation, of dark spots, which is insane for water. And then there's also studies in regards to the consumption of it in terms of rats. So again, I invite you to look at these if you're a sciencey nerd like I am, but there are fantastic studies out there for something that is just seemingly an aqueous resource. So with this Jeju lava energy water, we use it in multiple different prongs of our formulations. So not only do we use it actually to grow the giant BYoungPool, which has a seemingly synergistic effect in the sense that it actually better cultivates the BYoungPool, we also use it in our extraction process of the giant BYoungPool. And so that is the creation of our BYoungPool leaf water, which is primarily focused on in the booster, the serum, and the active cream EX. And so the creation of this BYoungPool leaf water using those whole fresh leaves of giant BYoungPool and this Jeju lava energy water is very intense. It's not something that we do flippantly, of course. So there are very many steps to the ultimate creation of BYoungPool leaf water for utilization in our formulas. So we go not only through 2 rounds of cleaning, but we also do sterilization and then later do an antibacterial processing. So just to show you that we're making sure things are clean. But eventually we, of course, have our extraction, which is very specific. So we cultivate the leaves at roughly 45 days of growth. And then we just have to keep the vat a very specific temperature during the extraction process. Once we've filtered and transferred it, we can then package it, inspect it for quality, and it is good to go. So there are lengthy processes to actually produce this raw material, but it is so worth it to stay consistent with the formulas we're making. So we use the Jeju lava energy water for the growth of our giant BYoungPool. We use it here to create our Jeju lava energy water BYoungPool extract. And then last but not least, for majority of our formulas, any formula that has a water phase in it, we try to use Jeju lava energy water instead of just traditional distilled water. So with my initial discussion in regards to the 80% water, there's just so much potential within that water phase to still offer some benefits to the hair, body, or skin. So in this instance, we try to include it wherever we could in just simply as an extra ingredient itself in various formulas. So that's it for giant BYoungPool and Jeju lava energy water. And of course, we created an outline for you. So feel free to scan the QR code here. I believe we'll also drop it in a chat, the link for the WeTransfer, just so you can download this and have the notes for yourself. But giant BYoungPool and Jeju lava energy water are so important to understand the RIMAN story. I think it's something that that was the first thing I learned and understood when I joined the team about a year ago. So I invite y'all to kind of look further into the majesty of these different ingredients. But without further ado, our next session 3, next week, next Wednesday, is going to be on skin physiology and RIMAN. So this is going to be a really fascinating one. We're going to go into the different layers of the skin, some traditional skin concerns, and how RIMAN essentially comes in with our various ingredients and formulation technologies. But also, to just quick reminder, we do have that Q&A session coming up March 13th. So still, please send in any questions you have to ritual@riman.com by March 1st. And we will go through all your good questions and hopefully answer a couple of them. And you can even hear your questions answered live. So that's again on March 13th. But don't go away yet. This is not the end of Product University. In honor of the official launch of our collagen mask, of the collagen mask pre-sale, we actually created a PowerPoint for y'all to go through it. So for those of you who already joined on our monthly rundown and heard about the collagen, it won't hurt my feelings if you don't want to stick through this, but we have some additional information on the mask that I think is really beneficial to understand, especially now since you can actually buy it. So we are now going to get into the importance of collagen first and foremost to understand what the sheet is doing for us. So collagen. Collagen is the most abundant structural protein in our bodies. Type 1 collagen specifically makes up roughly 90% of our collagen stores. There's also type 2, type 3, etc. But as young as 30 years old, your collagen essentially begins to naturally lessen in production, up to 1 to 2% a year. And if furthermore, if you have various daily habits, such as overexposure to the sun, perhaps you smoke or anything like that, you actually can further decrease your collagen stores. What does this all mean? Essentially, you are losing the structural support beneath your skin that allows your skin to look plump and otherwise fine in terms of texture and topography. So furthermore, collagen actually binds to the water within your skin, so that loss of collagen means less binding of that water. It means also dry skin. So collagen is such an important part of our skin makeup. You can actually see on the left here, it's contained within what is known as the extracellular matrix. And this is something that we will go into next week for session 3. But all you really need to understand is these 2 infographics up here. Just simply as you age and as you lose those collagen fibrils that are supporting your skin within the extracellular matrix, there's essentially empty spaces for the top layers of your skin to be sagging down, which of course we do not want. So how to create a way to, a novel way to administer collagen to the skin and actually have it be effective? Well, to do that, we looked towards electrospinning. So electrospinning is really a fantastic process. It was created early in the 1900s and of course has been refined for modern day use. But it features this little infographic here. So you have a polymer solution. In this case, it's going to be our collagen, and it is held within a needle. That needle itself is held at a high voltage. So once the polymer solution begins to eject from the needle, it is ejected into just a space, empty space essentially. But between the high voltage needle, there is another ground or collection plate that is held at an opposite potential. So you have one charge here, one charge here. If you ever tried to hold magnets together, there's attraction, there's repulsion. So all of those good charges essentially are creating the nanofibers of collagen. And these nanofibers are what essentially establish the strength and usability of our mask. So the nanofibers created are roughly 500 times smaller than a human hair, roughly 40 times smaller in diameter to the human pore. So this greatly increases the ability of collagen to essentially absorb into the skin. Collagen is a very large molecule in its native form. So without some kind of hydrolyzation, which we have in the collagen ampule, or creation of nanofibers as we have here, it's very difficult for collagen to easily get into the skin if applied topically. So in this instance, we are creating these microscopic nanofibers, as you can see back here, in comparison to a human hair or even to a pollen particle. They are tiny. So this greatly helps the collagen absorb into the skin. So with our collagen is made up of 100% New Zealand collagen. There are no other filler ingredients within the formula, just all collagen. And this New Zealand collagen is actually sustainably sourced as decreed by the Marine Stewardship Council. It comes specifically from the hoki fish. And so we use two different types or forms of collagen of this New Zealand collagen. So about 20% of the mask is hydrolyzed collagen. So hydrolyzed collagen is known for its ability to moisturize the skin and really benefit the skin in that regard. But we also have what is known as T-col. So T-col is a proprietary ingredient that essentially allows the collagen, which already comes in an alpha helical shape, to at least maintain a chain shape. So just a singular chain of collagen or a singular chain of amino acids, so to speak, or peptides. This is what allows us to actually create the nanofibers. With the hydrolyzed collagen, it is too small of particles to actually create nanofibers, but the T-col is what really is allowing us to electrospin the mask and to create a uniform white mask that can be applied to the skin. So with the two of them, we really get the accurate delivery of collagen to the skin. So with our all new Collagen 100 melting sheet, it's a pack of 5. Probably one of the greatest things about it, not only the fact that you get 100% collagen treatment for the skin, is that the sheet is ultra fine. And so while a little bit finicky to play with when you're actually trying to put it on, it's important that it is that thin because it allows for a seamless fit once you spray your booster or once you spray something to essentially allow it to absorb into your skin. And as I'm sure y'all know by now, it comes with 4 pieces per tiny pack within the box of 5. So it's gonna be a forehead, 2 cheek pieces, and then the neck. Or of course, if you prefer to apply it to your chin, you absolutely may. And so how do you use it, so to speak? There are 2 different kind of targeted benefits with this. You can either use it for long-term results by just using it once weekly. And so when I say long-term results, I don't mean that if you do follow the other methodology of application that you're not going to have, the results long-term either. But really, this is more explaining that the process itself is longer because you're only using it once a week. So it might take a little bit longer to see the results, but they'll still be there. So if you want to just, save and savor your package and maybe just do a weekly night routine, then you can use it just once a week. But if you're having a special event come up or anything of that nature, we suggest using it daily before that event. We actually found profound results in just consistent use over 2 weeks. So in those 2 weeks, you might be seeing a little bit more plumping and a little bit more hydration for the skin. Now, how to use it. So first and most important, of course, cleanse your skin. But most important is the prep. So collagen, as I've mentioned at the beginning, loves hydration, loves moisture. It loves anything to adhere to. And if your skin is completely dry, it will not stick. So in this instance, we found the greatest benefit with utilizing the BH oil mist. It provides the perfect amount of dry, but not wet, kind of the in-between for you to be able to get the mask to adhere to your skin. I know people that love using the Calm and Balance gel instead to apply it to the skin. And I've had people ask, what do I do if I only follow the Radiant Sun routine? That's a great question. And of course, we suggest at least applying perhaps the toner first, but we are creating an answer to make sure that you can follow and utilize this collagen mask, even if you only honor the Radiant Sun routine. So that's to come soon. But once you somehow prepped your skin, had it just a little bit tacky, that's when you can apply the mask. The second important tip is to make sure your fingers themselves are dry. Once you start picking up the mask and whatnot, it actually can adhere to the white part of the mask or the collagen of the mask, which will just frustrate you. So make sure that your hands are dry and you'll be good to go with your application. But all you have to do is remove the plastic backing that comes on the sheets and place the pieces white side down onto your face, and then remove the beige or orange application sheet. And then for the melting magic, all you gotta do is a couple spritz of the booster. So I liberally spray the booster just to make sure I'm getting everything absorbed and it all just goes nicely into the skin. And then you follow with your serum, another spritz of booster if you're a Bousset fan, and you finish off with the active cream. So that is the basics of utilizing the melting mask. And so in terms of the benefits, so there are so many different benefits in regards to collagen itself. So 100% collagen supplementation is just really important for bringing some of that structural support back to your skin. Not only does the collagen essentially bring back some of that hydration or is able to bind hydration in your skin again, but you'll just get that more general youthful plump glow. Furthermore, what's really important about the mask is that it passed both eye and skin irritation testing. So no potential for irritation in either category, which to me, I think that's a total benefit. So this whole presentation actually is on the drive. So if you want to go to riman.com, scroll all the way down, click the drive, enter any kind of password, it doesn't matter, it'll get in, and then go to promotions, and then I believe it's monthly promotions. This will be there for you to be able to use and talk about our brand new Collagen 100 melting sheet. But that is all we had for today. So I appreciate all of y'all who stuck around for both the giant BYoungPool and Jeju Love Energy Water and the collagen mask. I hope you're as excited as I am to try that one out. But I hope you learned something new today. I hope you're able to download that worksheet just to kind of keep these notes with you. And I will see you all next week for our discussion on the skin physiology and RIMAN. Thank you so much for joining. I'll talk to y'all later.